I was celebrated for adopting. People still do that, oh, you're so amazing. But nobody asks, nobody thinks about, what did that cost my kids? I adopted kids who are not white. And nobody in my church situation seemed to think that that was a problem, except, bless her, a black pastor's wife. But she wasn't specifically talking to me at the time. I wasn't adopting yet. But I mean, she was speaking truthfully, like, what are we doing here? Signing up all these white parents for adoption, especially in the US of black children, but also it's problematic for kids of any race to be raised by parents who are a different race than they are. It doesn't mean that you can't figure it out and that you can't work through this and like help create a healthy situation for your kids. But the problem is that nobody was asking, what about the kids? Like, is this good for them? And since I have adopted, I have often said many times, I was not the first choice for this child. I shouldn't have been the first choice for this child, and I don't believe myself to be the first choice for my children. I believe that children should grow up in their birth families. I believe they deserve that. I believe that they deserve to see their mirrored racial reality in their parent, among other things, just like the trauma of being separated from your first parents is awful. It's really hard. I need to get a cucumber. I lost the cucumber. There it is. So anyway, you can see in yesterday's video how I was very ill prepared to be a mother of so many children as a person who's neurodivergent, but that was not the context I was in. Motherhood, huge families were celebrated, adoption was celebrated, and so here I am. Here I am being not choice number one, and I don't even think choice number two for my children. Ideally, my children who are black would have been raised in black families. And I'm not going to have the whole big conversation today about like the adoption industry and everything that's problematic about it, but I want to say adoption does not prioritize adoptees enough. It prioritizes adoptive parents in the adoption triad. So the triad would be the child, the birth family, and the adoptive parents. And the adoptive parents, like me, are highly prioritized in adoption. But like, especially in America, the polar opposite experience that it is to grow up as a white person in America and grow up as a black person in America really, really should give everyone pause about white adoptive parents adopting black children. And, I and my husband have done lots of learning, and we have tried to provide an environment for our kids where they see themselves mirrored in the people around them. But we had to figure all of that out on our own. Like, there's sort of this like nod to like black hair care, a little bit of a nod to black hair care, sometimes in adoption training. Like, that's about it. And goodness. it's not fair. It's not fair to the kids. I'm really grateful that that there are plenty of ways to learn out there to become better equipped to be an adoptive parent to somebody of a different race. But we need to be listening to adult adoptee voices. You know, I did a lot of reading early in my motherhood that really helped me understand I am not choice number one or choice number two for this child. I am grateful to be the mom to my kids. I'm grateful because I love them and my life is better for them in it. But I think white adoptive parents need to know their place in the conversation in the church. There's so much focus on like, oh, adoption is an example of God's love. God adopted us. And so in adoption, we paint this beautiful picture of God's love. And first of all, I would like to say, I am not God. I am not God, and my child is not like a sinful person who needs to be saved by me. Like that analogy, it just breaks down really quickly when you try to import it into transracial adoption, especially. Like we have white savior problematic things. We have, hi. Okay, I needed to feed my kids. They started descending upon me in the kitchen. Okay, so what I was talking about is positioning ourselves as adoptive parents as like an example of God adopting sinners is extremely problematic for just the whole way that you think about it and like who that positions you as in the relationship to your adoptive child and who that positions the child as. Like from a Christian perspective, my child and we're on a level playing field. Racially, we're on a level playing field. I shouldn't have power and privilege as a white woman over my black son. Like we are equal in the eyes of God. So there's just a lot wrong with the emphasis that the church puts on adoption and like encourages adoption because it's a picture of the gospel. So all of those things to say, I think that's what causes problems for, oh dear, my dog is going completely nuts. The seagulls like fly by and she barks at them and wants to fly too. Hi, I know. I think you're gonna need to go inside. Come on. So that pressure within the white evangelical church that lifts up adoption without actually prioritizing the needs of the kids and educating adoptive parents on history, right? I mean, even just history in America, because white people in America, we have not been taught a fair history. We've not been taught a realistic history. So there's just so many things that white adoptive parents aren't trained on. Yeah, so the church is pushing this, but it's not necessarily in the best interest of the kids. Or, I mean, I've had my children's birth families tell me, like, yeah, I wouldn't have chosen a white family for my child to be in, but I am really glad that my child is in your family, which is the most humbling thing ever, by the way. We are so honored to be the parents of our children. The task is so momentous. It's so momentous. I guess having them tell me that, I'm just like, okay, I think there's room for this transracial adoption thing to be okay. But I think it takes a lot of work, and I think it takes a lot of education and humility on the part of the adoptive parent. Like, the kid shouldn't have to be doing the work. The kid shouldn't have to wonder if the parent understands, like, the experience that a black boy is having growing in America. They shouldn't have to wonder that. That is the responsibility of the white adoptive parent, to understand history and to understand now, the risks of now. And I think a lot of adoptive parents rise to that occasion, and I think a lot don't. And that's a very lonely situation for the adoptees who grow up in families where the parents haven't educated themselves about what it's like to be a person who's not white in America and about the adoptee experience. I read a book that was really helpful. I will put all the books that I recommend and also all the accounts of adult adoptees that I can think of. I will put them in the description for your education if you are a white adoptive parent or a prospective adoptive parent. One of the books that I read was just about the experience of being biracial, mixed race kids, and what that's like, just aside from adoption. And one of my black sons is biracial. So that was really important education for me to understand just the conflict that can create in oneself and the identity issues that come up. And so, like, overlay that with the identity issues that come up in adoption, and we just need to be talking about this really honestly. We need to not be so precious about our own feelings as adopted parents. I was so grieved to hear from the social worker from one of my children's adoptions that she had never ever heard of what we were doing, which was allowing our son to go stay with his birth family for a week without us. He was a teenager at the time. And there are things that I would do a little bit differently about that visit, just to prepare him. And gosh, the seagulls are nuts right now. But I have zero regrets about the time that he spends with his birth family. I'm deeply grateful for the opportunity to be in touch with them. That's not always a given. And, you know, not every birth family is ready for that. Not every birth family is at a place where they're able to hold that. And so I feel very, very, I hate the word blessed, just because it's been ruined. I feel very fortunate to have the opportunity to have birth family relationships for one of my kids that really, really needs that. And my mind is just sort of blown that the social worker was like, yeah, this doesn't really happen. For me, when we got back in touch with my child's birth family, like, that was the best news. It was the best news for me. And it's a very particular, every situation's different. It's a very particular situation, and it's a positive situation. I'm not worried about him being there, and every situation is different. So I don't want to say that like everybody can have this, but I think every adoptive parent should want this. They should want this for their child. The gift of birth family relationships. I feel very, very lucky, and we have been adopted into our child's birth family. Like, they have welcomed us with open arms, which is the most humbling thing ever. Gosh, it's the most humbling thing ever. Like, they have so much love. Reconnecting with them has been some of the best news of my life, because I am very aware that I can't provide everything. I don't have the lived experience. Even all the research in the world that I do, I don't have the lived experience of being able to instruct my children what it's like to be Black in America. And I don't live in America anymore, because it was very, very hard to think about Black sons growing up. Especially, we have neurodivergence going on, we have disability going on with different kids, and thinking about police interactions for Black teenage boys, like, it was honestly too much for me. And I didn't know how to tell them to navigate that, but I didn't want them to have to navigate it. I didn't want them to. And I don't know. It's not the only reason that we left. I had a life, like, super long-term 20-year dream to live abroad. But I mean, I'm grateful that wow, the birds are nuts. So, like, I don't know if these are going in front of the camera. They're really close. I'm grateful that they can have a measure of freedom and not be so worried about their safety. It's a different world here, and racism is everywhere. But I'm grateful for my sons to be living now in a culture where police interactions are not usually lethal. As a Black person, usually is not the right word, but like, police interactions are not so frequently lethal as they are in America. It's been 10 years since Philando Castile was shot and killed by a police officer in Minnesota. And I think that's, this is just an aside, but like, that anniversary just happened. And I think about how I think that's where it all began for me, wanting to leave with my Black children specifically. I mean, not all my kids are Black, but I think that's where my foot started walking out the door of America, because I think previously to that, ignorantly, I felt like they were more safe in the North than they would have been in the South, and that was my ignorance. I was wrong, and that had to do with being white. You don't understand the risk. Like, no matter how much you learn, like, you don't get it. We don't get it in the same way, like, in our lived experience, in our bodies, in our communities. So anyway, here I am in Portugal. I am grateful to be here. And I am grateful to be the parent, the third choice parent to my children who are not white. That's no credit to the spaces who encouraged us as white parents that adoption was just about love and about providing a home for a family. No, providing a family for a kid who needs it, and an example of God's love, and just the best, most Christian thing that you could do. all of those things were really lacking, and we're really not centering the experience of the children in that situation. So I guess that's what I gotta say today. Woo. Thanks for listening. I hope that this was helpful and eye-opening for you.